Hello Arts102, this is the line demo, and this is going to be pretty short and sweet because there's not really a whole lot of new information to tell you. Most of what you learned in the rhythm unit is going to be used to make this line image. So I'm going to download the template and get that into Photoshop. I've been playing around with my workspace here. I'm going to reset essentials so I'm back to the default. Okay, so this is the line image template, and this is another assignment that doesn't really require any particular tool per se. The tools that I showed on rhythm are going to definitely have some good use. You can use your brushes and you can certainly use your shapes. Let's open up, actually I'm going to use the rectangle tool instead of the line tool so I can decide on how much I want to put in here. And just for an example, let's call it American Stability. And the go-to color scheme for everybody is very often the flag colors for any given culture. And I don't know, that's certainly not wrong. And I'd love to see something more creative than that. So I'm going to grab some lines here, and when we're talking about stability and calm, we're talking about horizontal lines. So, and when I continue to make shapes, if I change my foreground color, the shape doesn't change color. I want to go to the fill color up here, and that's going to set the fill type for the currently selected shape. It's kind of different because these are a different sort of layer, but I can do it that way as well. So I can keep adding shapes if I want to. And that one ended up going a little over, but I don't really care right now. And if you're doing something that's got a lot of repetitive objects in it, you can select the object over here, or if you're working with pixels instead of shapes, you can create a selection with the marquee tool up here. And when you have a selection made, you can turn on your move tool and you can copy that by using the Alt key modifier. Talked about that in the balance, and that's a little bit helpful. That's a good modifier to do, and it says it cannot use move tool because no layers are selected. That's not true. Oh, it's because I have auto select layer on. I probably clicked slightly outside of the thing I was trying to copy, which is this red object. So that's why it said nothing's selected. Oh, no, it's just being difficult. Okay, I'm turning off auto select layer then. If that comes up and you know you've got a layer selected and you know you've got the one you want to copy, turn that off temporarily. And that should do it. Yeah, that did it. It was just being difficult. That's irritating. But what are you going to do? Okay, so I made the copy, and we can vary the size some for visual interest. That's with the transform tool. I'll grab some of these blue stripes and I'll copy those too. I went over the edge a little bit here. I'm going to correct that right now. I'm going to apply that transformation. I went over the edge a little bit on the other side. I'm going to correct that and apply the transformation. And let's fix these up here because they went over the edge just a little bit. Now you could also rasterize this at the end with your shapes, and I'm going to probably do that, but and then at that point you could use an eraser tool just to trim the edges, and that's fine, but I'm just going to fix these up first. Now where's that one? There we go. That's what I'm looking for. Okay, so by creating this sort of horizontal line design, I've got a stable calming effect like I talked about in the balance unit. And my color choice is obviously red, white, and blue. Now, maybe that's actually French calm. So let's make it a little more American with the custom shape tool. And I can go up here on my options, and there's a star in here somewhere. You know what? Actually, we can do that with the polygon tool also. Right here. The polygon tool will also make a star. That might be easier. So we're going to do a 5-sided polygon. And what I'm going to do is up on the little gear here, just in the options, I'm going to turn on the star, and I'm going to indent the sides by 50%. I'm going to leave smooth corners off. Okay, and it might be interesting to make this a negative space object too. That could be neat. We have to have it covering everything. Well, no, we don't actually. It's not like there's a law. Maybe that's a little more interesting like that. So now we've got a little bit of gestalt happening. So your mind is filling in that star, even though it's not technically there. So maybe it should be on top. But that's just an idea to play with. If you take it down where things are a little more busy, then you're giving the viewer a little bit more information to work with there. So when I'm done, if I've been using shapes, I'm going to select all these layers. I'm just going to click on the first one and then shift click on the last one. And I'm going to merge my selected layers with Command E. Uh-oh, didn't like that. I'm going to undo that. This should... Okay, I'm going to right click on it and I take that back. I need to rasterize this first. Older versions of Photoshop would rasterize it and then flatten it, but this version of Photoshop does something weird to me anyway. So I'm going to rasterize this first. So I made my selection, all my layers that comprise this shape. I've got all of them selected. I'm going to right click on that and choose rasterize layers. And now I can merge them by using merge layers. That actually merges the selected layers, or Command E or Control E on PC. There we go. And now they're all on one solid layer, so I can easily trim the edges up here. This isn't what I would call really that critical, but it's just letting you know it's an option. Okay, and let's make another layer. You'll notice I didn't make a layer when I started making those shapes. Shape layers are different than pixel layers. So I'm going to create a new pixel layer, new blank layer, and when I'm using the shape tool, it just makes new layers automatically because they're called vector shapes. So when I want to draw in pixels, I need to make a new blank layer. I'm going to turn that on, and I'm going to grab the bucket fill just to show you something else. And I don't even know what culture and mood I'm doing. I'm just going to grab some colors. Now the bucket fill, if you wanted to use it, you've probably already figured it out. It's not exactly rocket science. You click on the canvas and it fills up the canvas with a solid color up to the boundaries of what it reaches. So I'm going to step backward, and what I probably want is either some boundaries or a selection. I'm going to turn on my rectangular marquee tool, and I'm going to make a selection. And now I'll turn on my bucket fill. I used the G key to activate that, and when I click on the shape, it fills it up to the extent of the selection. Okay, and inside that drawer, you got the triangle, so we know it's a drawer. I'm going to click on that, and the other tool that is of interest to us anyway is the gradient tool. And this one might not be as obvious. What it basically does is it fills your selection or your entire canvas, and it gradually fades from, by default it gradually fades from your foreground color to your background color. So you can edit that if you want to. I'm actually going to change my background color, and I'm going to kind of give it a little bit more of a green tint, so that my gradient isn't going from green to white, it's going from green to kind of a lime green. And if I click on this selection and drag a line, it will start my gradient at where the point that I started, and it will end the gradient where I ended. And so you can see it creates a gradual fade from one color to the other. And everybody loves gradients. Gradients are the king of design these days. So always cool stuff. If you want to edit these, I'll just show a little bit of an edit. I'm going to click on this band up here in the options bar, and there's some presets that you can kind of look at. We don't really want presets because we're designers, we make our own stuff, but what you can see from the presets is kind of how this works. You've got color stops up down here, and these represent a solid color that is going to fade to and from the next stop. And these can be moved around left or right. You can just click on them, and as you can see, it changes where that color appears. And if you want to add a stop, you can just click on this area down here, the blank area underneath. That's going to add a stop. If you want to change the color, you can just click on one of those, the stop that you want to change, and then you can click on this change color of selected stop. And I'll make this is some very crazy colors here, but yeah, yuck. Okay, so there it is with 5 stops, and if you want to get rid of any of these stops, you can just click on one and drag it down until it disappears, which is right about here, slightly under that band, and that gets rid of the excess stops. I'll go back to the one that I've got set with my foreground and background color, and I'm going to just kind of move the first stop over, and I'm just going to add one that's a little darker and maybe a little bit more on the yellow side. And I want it to fade into this one a little faster, and I'm going to bring this one over and add one more stop that's a little lighter and a little more yellow. So on the end of your gradient, you can get into some of the more saturated colors. Even here, a lot of times I don't go all the way to the corner, but you can use that little bit there to put a little English on your gradient. So, and if you're wondering what these top stops are, they're opacities. If you want to make an opacity stop, you can. And that just fades it to and from transparent. Those are not as widely used, and I don't want things to become confusing, so I'm just focusing on the color stops, but they're there if you want them. So I'm going to click OK, and I'm going to put that gradient down again. You're going to see a couple of different colors. It's got a slightly different dynamic. Starts with a more dark color and it ends with a lighter color. And then I can start putting whatever design on top of this that I want to, using shapes or using my brush tool and using my filters if I want to. So might want to separate the layers. If you're using the brush tool, if you're using shapes, it'll be automatically separated. Speaking of those filters, one more thing, and then we're going to call it good. The shapes that I made on my first bit down here, the shapes will not react to a filter. It'll give you grief if you try to filter shapes. It'll yell at you. So what you want to do is you want to do that rasterizing that I showed once you've got the design laid down that you want, and then you can apply, for example, the liquefy filter with success. As you can see, I'm liquefying. I'll change to a forward warp and we'll just so now it's I don't know what it is. Okay, so again, if you try that on a shape layer, it's not going to work. Those filters are only going to work on pixel layers. The liquefy and everything in the filter gallery, they're only going to work on pixel layers. Okay, so that's really all there is to know for this particular unit. So have fun, and I look forward to seeing your projects.